Hello there everybody, Sam Strains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another O-Gauge video. Today I'm going to attempt to automate my O-Gauge layout to hopefully allow the engines there to drive themselves. Right, so you have just seen the results. You know whether this project is going to work or not. Obviously, I haven't done it yet, so I have no idea. But anyway, this is the problem. So when I'm running my O-Gauge trains, my controller is here, okay? But the problem is the camera might need to be here, or over here, or maybe over here, or here, or here. Yeah, I think you get the message. So I'm having to tentatively start a train running, dash across the room, use the camera, and then dash back to the controller and stop the train again before it crashes into a buffer stop, or even worse, goes off the end. It's not ideal. When you film, you want to have time to set up shots and get them absolutely right. Having to dash around like that is not ideal. So I was shopping on Hatton's and I came across this. Now they call this the Gaugemaster Super Shuttle unit, I believe. I think this kit should allow exactly that to work. So this should allow a loco to run along, reach the end of the track, or at any point you like really, stop, wait for a little while, and then carry on back in the opposite direction. Sorry, box. Just smacked something. And that's really, really handy. If this will work, that would be really, really good. So I bought this from Hatton's. It cost me £28, so it is quite expensive. Link below if you want to check it out. For that price, I'm hoping this has a few features. First of all, I'm hoping that there is an override, because obviously I don't want this thing to change direction all the time. Sometimes I might want to just drive the train. If it doesn't have an override, it's not a problem. I should be able to build one myself, but it would be nice for the money. Second of all, let's say the loco isn't at the end of the track when this thing changes direction. It would be nice if it would stop for a second before going back in the opposite direction, as opposed to just suddenly changing polarity like that, because that can damage motors, it can upset them. So hopefully this will do everything I ask of it. Let's find out though. Let's open it up and see what we get inside the box. So I think this is just a generic box for all of Gaugemaster's various gizmos, so I won't take any time to look at it at all. Let's get this open then and see exactly what we have inside. Okay, so I haven't actually sussed exactly how this thing is going to work yet, so the instructions are going to be quite handy. Let's open this up then. So I'm not going to read this on camera, I'll read it afterwards, but here's just a cursory glance if you're interested. It clearly does show the setup here. It shows where the diodes need to go. Yes, this does use diodes as well. That's how the loco stops in your desired location. All sorts of info there, which I will read before I get started. So that's good. I'm glad there's instructions on there. And then all that's left to look at is the actual gizmo itself. So here it is, the electric shuttle control module. And it seems quite basic, doesn't it? It's just a nice little box. It's got an adjust button here, which doesn't appear to be a button, so we'll have to figure out what the deal is with that. Then there's track, cont, and then you've got your 16-volt AC power supply. It does require 16 volts to run. I don't know what cont would be. That's surely got to be the output from the controller, hasn't it? The actual loco control. Yes, well, that's what the instructions are for, isn't it? So that's absolutely fine. And there should be, I believe this came with some diodes as well. Ah, yes, here they are. Now, technically speaking, there is an O-Gauge version of this which has more powerful diodes than these. Now, I don't think Hatton's had that version in stock when I ordered mine, so I went for the double O-Gauge version. I don't think it would make an awful lot of difference, because they're only going to be passing current for a tiny amount of time, and to be honest, there's not that much difference between the current drawn by an O-Gauge or a double O-Gauge locomotive. However, if you want to do things absolutely correctly and not dodgily, as I sometimes do, bear that in mind and get the right version. But yeah, I think besides the peanuts, which I do like, they're a nice freebie, I could use those for my other packaging exploits. I think that is it. So I'm going to read the instructions properly, and then we'll get this set up and see how it works. Let's give it a try. So I always like to start with the fiddly part of a project, because it leaves the nice bits to do later on. So I think the first part is going to be fitting the diodes. So basically, to fit the diodes, I'm going to have to remove one of the fish plates, probably this one here. I'm going to go against the diagram slightly and choose the rail that is furthest from the camera so that it's not too visible. It shouldn't matter. So I'm going to replace that with a plastic fish plate, therefore inserting a break into the track. And then I'm going to bridge that gap with one of the diodes like that, probably behind the rail so you can't see it. Now the reason you use diodes is because they only pass current in one direction, which means when the loco comes over here and crosses that section of track, the diodes will block that current and stop the loco from running. It's only when the polarity changes, when the voltage becomes positive or negative, depending on what it was to start with, that the loco will get power again and then return in the opposite direction. meaning that the little gadget box there just handles changing the polarity at the set time. So usually I just tend to run, say, one loco and possibly a wagon or two, so I think this will be enough space between that break there and the buffer stop. I think it's better than going up near the points because that is a bit too far, I would say. But yeah, if one day this distance isn't enough and I want to put more rolling stock there, then I can always change it. But I think for today that will be fine. And of course you have to do the same at the other end of the track, but I guess I'll just show you this one. So first job then is going to be to get the track pins out and remove that end piece of track. I will solder one of the diodes. Well, in fact, no, I will connect it with crocodile leads to start with, just so that I know the polarity is correct. And then once it is, I will solder it all up. So wish me luck, let's give it a try. So I'm not looking forward to this bit because I quite like my O-gauge layout and it seems wrong taking pliers to it to rip it to pieces. But I think there's only 2 track pins that need to come out, and luckily I put them in quite badly, or I did that one, so it should be quite easy to get this out. Now I'm left-handed, so I'm doing this right-handed so you guys can see, so I might live to regret this. No, I didn't regret it, that was easy. Okay, one more to do at the back. I'm lazy, so instead of removing the buffer stop, I'm going to cheat and just lever this up with a flat edge screwdriver. I know it's a bad idea and it's cheating, but hey, there's no such thing as cheating in a project like this. It's just success or failure. I choose success. Yes, that worked. Right, there's the pin. Right, now let me get my crocodile leads and connect up one of those diodes and see if we can get the polarity correct. Right, so I'm not putting any diodes on the inside line, so that can go straight bridged. That is just one crocodile lead going across there, and then I've got 2 more crocodile leads to put the diodes across. And I'm just going to do this with trial and error. I mean, the diodes are marked so that you can figure out which way they go, but to be honest, trial and error is better, isn't it? If you try and be clever and try and figure it out, it's only going to go wrong. So let's just choose a direction. And I can also never remember the polarity of diodes either. I've tried to remember, I always seem to forget, so trial and error is going to work just fine, I should think. Okay, and connect that. So we now have the desired setup. Obviously, if I tried to run a train over that, I think it would end badly. But if I just go and grab a loco, I should be able to test it. Okay, let me get this terrier on if I can. It's very awkward having to reach over the camera like that. Okay, let's give it some juice. Hopefully it will only be able to travel in one direction, and hopefully that direction will be backwards. Okay, turn the controller up, nothing. Reverse the direction. Okay, see, trial and error works, so that's good. So I need the diode pointing forwards, and that's all. So usually soldering to track isn't much of an issue, but normally I'm very lucky with it, so it stands to reason that now the camera's on, it's all going to go wrong. But we shall try. This first step isn't strictly necessary, but I like to do it anyway. I just choose an implement that won't push the track out of focus. Are we in focus there? And just scratch the surface up a little bit. I'm going to go for this surface here. This just helps the solder take to it. So I'm just using a screwdriver. You could use a file, you could use anything really, but this screwdriver has done the trick. I don't know if you can see that, but the surface is now a little bit rough, and solder likes that. Solder likes a rough surface. So obviously we're going to be soldering towards the bottom of the rail rather than the top, because I don't want to interfere with the loco running or anything like that. So I'm using a moderately high temperature here to solder because I'm mindful of those plastic sleepers. I don't want those to melt. So moderately high temperature, do the job as quick as you can, and the job's a good one. So the diode is pre-trimmed and tinned, so I can now solder it on. This is usually the part where I burn myself, so hopefully you enjoy that. Okay, nice and gently. I've left plenty of leg on these diodes because I don't want to shortchange myself later on, but that looks fine. That looks like it will be well out of view, won't it? Perfect. Okay, so plastic fish plate, I need to find one of those, and then we're ready to put it back, and then I've got the awkward job of soldering around that corner. Right, let's get this baby back on then. Now, one thing I have discovered is that the soldering iron remains hot enough to solder around 30 seconds to a minute after you've disconnected it from the workstation, which means that if I prep this track up, I could bring the iron over here and solder it in situ, which is what I'm hoping to do. So now I just need to shove these together. That looks good. Is that level? Reasonably. Okay. So I'll go and do the same process again, except now I can't see. That's going to be difficult. I don't think I should do that. No, I think I'm going to have to remove this piece of track then. Look, I tried it the lazy way, okay? I did my best, but I just don't think it's going to work. So I'll have to take out this piece of track as well, solder it on the bench. Got to be sensible, haven't I? Got to be sensible. I think I have got to be sensible in this video, haven't I? Just to prove that I can. At least these pins are coming out nice and easy. Is there another one? Yeah, one more. This is a nice shot, isn't it? Sam's armpit reaching across the track. Okay, right, should be able to pull that out. Why is it I always make videos weird? I can't just make a normal video, can I? There we go. Oh, right, now this is a big piece of track to handle. Okay. Right, well this is less sensible. This is some seriously dodgy stuff. I've got the track balanced across the bench here. I need to make sure that the two bits of track are actually married properly together. Otherwise I won't be able to change it once this diode's soldered in. Okay, so I'm going to leave plenty of space. I'm going to go for about here, I think. So let's roughen that area up a little bit. Just bend the diode out of the way. And you can see how quickly the solder takes to this once you've roughened it up. Really works well, that. Okay, let's trim the diode's leg then. Want it about there, leave a little bit of extra. I tin that up and solder it on. Right, another burning opportunity here. Let's see if I take it. Oh, blood, yeah. I wasn't going to swear then, promise. This is going to hurt. Oh, I didn't do it in time, damn. Right, come on, sensible. Sensible's the order of day. Okay, ooh. That's 2 burns. That will do. That's on. That's a good joint. Well, it is if you don't look too close, but that's as much as I'm willing to do. Right, let's get it on. Okay, the moment of truth. Actually, no, this is far from the moment of truth, isn't it? There's a lot more work to do yet. It's one of many moments of truth that I will have today, but this looks like it's a job well done. Okay folks, the Terrier is on her way, and to show my confidence in this, I'm by the camera. I'm not touching the controller. I'll keep my hands there until the logo comes into shot. Look, I'm not touching the controller. Is it going to stop? Yes. Now, if I go back to the controller, I should be able to turn it off, change direction, and reverse the loco back up. How perfect was that? Awesome. Fast, high speed. Look at that. Perfect. Love it. Brilliant. Okay, now I'll just have to do the other side. Okay, that's done, and I've got these strange blister-like things on my fingers, almost like I've been burnt several times. It's all very strange. Always seems to happen when I'm doing these projects. Anyway, here comes the Terrier. Hopefully it'll stop in the desired spot. Let's see if it does. Yes, it does. And if I change direction, it should then work again. And yes, it does. Right, I believe I'm now ready to wire all of this up. I'm going to do it exactly as the instructions dictate, except for the fact that I've made this up. So this is a nice chunky switch, and this will allow me to switch between the shuttle unit and just the controller without the shuttle unit. So I've got one line going out to the track with my custom track connector on the end. I'm glad I made this modular now because I can just disconnect it. And then I have an input here from the main controller, and these are common together. This doesn't make any sense visually, does it? But yeah, this is going to go from the main controller. Green wires are going to come from the shuttle controller. So I think that is all good. And I'm going to connect this up to the Gaugemaster controller. Okay. Also for the back of the main controller, I've made up some 16-volt leads, so let's put those in. Obviously there's nothing about the leads that is 16 volts. I've just used a different type so that I recognise it. Okay, and now I should be able to connect those 16-volt cables to the new machine, the new unit. I'm hoping to just sit it on top like this and then put my switch. I need to find somewhere to mount my switch, but yeah, that is actually going to be quite neat and tidy, isn't it, that? So let's have a look. So it's 16 volt, that's this one on the end here. Polarity, of course, doesn't matter with 16 volts because it's AC. Okay, 16 volts is done. I've also got some short leads coming out of the switch again, where the controller output is. That's what I was trying to say earlier on. So they need to go on the cont, which is the middle one. So that's easy. Okay, those are in, that's good. And then we just have the track, which is going to be these 2 green cables that I've put in. There we go. And that is very neat and tidy. To make it a little bit more so, I'm going to put some cable ties around it, and that just means that the individual cables won't get snagged and ripped out because they're all tied together. Good, and I'll do the same for the switch. Right, there we go. So if I'm going to stick these all down at some point, so it's going to look a bit like that. I'll put the switch on the side of there maybe, or I might find a slightly more competent way of mounting it. But obviously, before I stick anything together, I'm going to want to test this out. So I think we're literally good to go. That is all wired up, and the amount of wiring there is not too bad at all. You know, that's all right, isn't it? That. Okay. So I'm going to move my temporary switch into position 2. That should connect the shuttle unit as opposed to just the controller. I'll choose a direction on the controller and start it off. Let's go backwards to start with. Alright, 40%. Maybe the shuttle unit will change the direction before it reaches the dead zone, but if not, then that's fine. There it goes all the way back to the end, almost at the stopping point. There we go, it has now stopped. Awesome. And there it goes. I did not touch anything. It's come back in the opposite direction. That is amazing. Now, big question. Are we going to have to adjust the time, or will the Terrier reach its second destination before the controller changes the direction? We will see. Yes, it did. Although actually the Terrier is running quite fast, so perhaps I might sort of adjust it to give me a little bit longer if possible. But yeah, actually, straight out of the box, it seems to be timed perfectly for this layout and that loco. That's working excellently. Look how good that is. Of course, I now have a good way of running in locos as well. So it's all pretty good. Whoa. I will say it's a little bit inconsistent. The timings seem a little bit different. Sometimes there's a big wait, sometimes not so much. That's interesting. Right, so I've now slowed down the Terrier and adjusted the shuttle unit so that the time between the changes in polarity is now at its maximum. So let's see if we have enough time for this loco to get to the other end of the track. This is kind of the speed I like to film at, so if it can do this, I'll be very, very pleased. I'm not convinced it's going to make it, but maybe it will. No, it didn't quite. It got most of the way there, but not all of it. But let's go again, because perhaps it will be better the second time around. I'm not sure. Okay, second attempt, here we go. It was about here last time. Yep, same again. Okay, fair enough. Alright, so I've done some timing to find out exactly what the delay is. Now, it's advertised to have a range of between 20 and 70 seconds, but that's not at all what I'm seeing. And it's actually quite a bit different between forwards and backwards. So going forwards in this setup, it's changing after just 54 seconds. That's some 15 seconds short. That's quite a long way out, isn't it? In the opposite direction, it's going for exactly 60 seconds, which is a little bit longer, but not great. So I wonder, is this capacitor operated, do you think? To start with, thought it would work on some sort of time circuit that runs on the AC feed. I thought that would make sense, but the fact that it seems to vary quite a bit suggests that maybe it is done with a capacitor. Maybe that means you could put a larger value capacitor in. Yeah, maybe, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's not too bad. If I run this Terrier at 50% speed, it does make it end to end, which is the main thing. So yeah, it's not 100% as described. It is a shame that the maximum delay time isn't longer. Less than a minute isn't very much at all. This will be useless for any layout larger than mine, which is a shame. But overall, I am very happy. I now do have a way of running in locos, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for watching. That was a very interesting little gadget to install, and I'm very pleased with it overall, I would say. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you very soon for some more videos. All right, cheers, folks. Take care.